Kelley Ford, K Ford Ratings on X, kfordratings.com is on your radio. Kelley, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Hey, Jake. I'm doing well today. How are you?
Doing good. Doing really good. As we march towards March Madness, it's going to be fun. We're going to get into some of that in the second segment. Of course, we'll do a lot of that over the next few weeks with you looking at the tournament. I want to talk some college football, though, to start out with. And I kind of want to work off, get your thoughts on some of these teams. Obviously, I know you still got a long way to go, like the rest of us, working on analytics and what these rosters are going to look like. I saw, or somebody on this show, I can't remember who it was I had on the other day, felt like Alabama would probably dip into the portal after spring practice, a considerable amount to try to fill some of these spots. So we'll still have that work to get into. But I want to start with Dabo Swinney and Clemson. And the reason I want to bring them up is because Bruce Feldman of The Athletic released his top 10 college football coaches, and I don't really know where what his criteria is. He still has Dabo Swinney as the second best coach in college football. I tend to disagree with that. If you want to say over the life of a career, you can make that argument. But Clemson and Dabo Swinney feel like they have a lot of work to do this year to really, and they'll be right there. We'll see. They play Georgia week 1. This is not the same Clemson team we knew 5 years ago, though.
Yeah, Jake, I completely agree with you. And to the point of, where does Dabo fall in the current hierarchy of college football head coaches, it does depend on the time frame that you're going to look at, right? I mean, are you going back here 10 years? Because if so, yeah, he's got the 2 national championships, and not many coaches can speak to that level of success. Or are you going to judge it more on what have you done in the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years? And they made a couple playoffs here within that time frame, but it's certainly fallen off in recent years. And if I look, I'm quickly pulling up my preseason expectations from last year because it lists quickly where I had Clemson at the end of each college football season, and I'm looking at kind of where I think they might be here this year. It is possible and even likely, Jake, that from a power rating standpoint, this is going to be the worst Clemson team that we've seen since maybe 2014. So you're going back a decade, the last time we've seen a Clemson team. They're probably in that 15 to 20 range of power ratings if I had to guess right now what it's going to look like this fall. And the last time they were in that range was 2014. They finished the year number 21 for me. So they're certainly trending in the wrong direction. But I would also say, Jake, Florida State is really the only team, as I quickly look at the ACC composition for next year, and of course it changes with Stanford, Cal, SMU coming in. Florida State's the only team that I'm going to say definitively right now is maybe a higher power-rated team than Clemson. And they do have to go to Florida State in the regular season. They do have Georgia in Atlanta to open the year, as you alluded to. So tough schedule there, tough couple of games, but Clemson's still going to be among the favorites in the ACC. That speaks probably more to the ACC than anything else, but certainly not the Clemson powerhouse that we've been used to seeing really from that 2015 to 2020-ish time frame.
Kelley Ford talking college football. We'll get some college basketball second segment. K Ford Ratings on X, kfordratings.com. Wednesday edition of the program. All right, not in the top 10, but I do want to stay in the ACC since you brought up Florida State, and I want to move past Florida State and go to Miami because, there's a lot we do know, and it's I've kind of combed through here, and I've got my initial, strength of schedule rankings for a lot of these teams. Miami, when you look at Miami, and you kind of, depending on, you've talked about this off the air, how you calculate it, they've got arguably the best roster with Florida State in the ACC. They've got the quarterback with Cam Ward coming in. Their schedule is very, very manageable. Is it the big thing for me is what about their coaching staff? What about their head coach? I mean, because when you look at his resume, you're talking about a guy that's one game over 500 in his career. Everything, when you look at him, it says, yes, they should compete for this championship this year. You look at the history of Mario Cristobal and Miami over the last several years, that's what gets in the way. Where are you at way too early with Miami?
I think Miami belongs in that top tier in the ACC as well, Jake, because we mentioned Florida State. We just talked about Clemson. That next team for me, the early look at the power ratings, is going to be Miami. Again, the ACC, if I'm the athletic director at any of those 3 institutions in the ACC, my expectation is that we are going to be in the top 3 in the conference football standings year in and year out. There's really not a lot of excuses to be made for those 3 programs with their recent and historical success and the resources that they have. Now, granted, some have more than others, But those three programs in particular are positioned such that I would expect, if I'm an administrator at those universities, that we're going to be competing for the ACC championship year in and year out in football. You're right. It has not gone to plan at Miami here in recent years. They've been better in recent years. 2023, they were better than they were in 2022, of course, a really down year where they finished number 70 in my power ratings, a shockingly bad year. But even going back before that, number 33 back in 2021, number 18 in 2020, but they haven't finished higher than number 18 in my power rating since 2016. I'm not suggesting that this Miami team's going to come into the year in the top 20, but they could certainly have a team that rounds into form and maybe finds themselves in that 15 to 20 range come the end of the year. So it's possible that we could be looking at the best Miami team if everything goes to plan since maybe 2016.
Bruce Feldman has Lance Leopold on his list at number 3. I tend to disagree with that. I mean, I know that his resume is extremely stellar. You look at what he did, back prior to Kansas when he was at Buffalo, and then of course at Wisconsin Whitewater. Unbelievable, resume there. But when I want to take this past Lance Leopold, though, I've said this. I want your thoughts on this. The Big 12, as it sets the new Big 12, could be, I think, the funnest league to watch because there's no Texas, there's no Oklahoma. They're going to be in the SEC. Yes, Utah comes over, Colorado, Arizona State. But, when you kind of look at Utah, Central Florida, now they're going to have KJ Jefferson, and they worked the transfer portal pretty hard. TCU, Colorado, Texas Tech, Baylor, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. This could be a wide open Big 12 championship run.
Wide open is the exact phrase I would use to describe. Not agree more. I personally, again, a lot of work to be done for the 2024 preseason K Ford ratings. I personally think that right now I'm probably leaning towards Utah as maybe the best power-rated team in the new look Big 12. Of course, they're making their transition from the Pac-12. Kansas State is up there. Arizona, I know they lost Jed Fish. I know he's up at Washington now, but what he had started building there in Tucson, Arizona's a team to watch. Don't count out Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. They always seem to be in the mix. I'm a big Matt Campbell fan at Iowa State, and they seem to be a team that overachieves relative to the level at which they recruit. It's wide open. I didn't even get to TCU, who was in the national championship game just 2 years ago. Kansas, Leipold, as you mentioned, has done a complete turnaround. The best 2-year stretch we've seen at Kansas since 2007, 2008. It's a wide open conference. There's no historical, traditional blue blood of college football remaining with the departures of Texas and Oklahoma. Somebody or somebodies is going to take this new look conference by the neck and say, this is now ours. We now run the Big 12, and you could go one of maybe half a dozen ways with who that's going to be. I am very excited to see what the Big 12 produces this year. Jake, in terms of CFP, because I know that's always the follow-up, is, well, Kelley, if they have all of these contenders, what does that do for their CFP chances? We could be in a scenario where, like we used to talk about the Pac-12, they all beat each other up in the regular season. They got some good teams, but didn't really get the opportunity in the playoff, except for on a handful of occasions, to have a team in the CFP. Well, now with the expanded CFP, the Big 12 will be represented, of course, but it is possible that you're going to see, 4, 5, 6 teams from either or the Big Ten, the SEC. It's possible we get into years where you've got one, maybe only 2 teams from the Big 12, if there is that much parity, and they all knock each other up and beat each other up throughout the regular season.